Tehran, November 4th, 1979. A mob of student revolutionaries scales the walls of the American embassy.
Marine guards are ordered to hold their fire. No bloodshed, not yet. The gates fall in minutes.
66 American diplomats and staff are seized, blindfolded, paraded. The world watches it happen live. For the first time, a superpower watches its own citizens held hostage and can do nothing. For 79 days, negotiators try everything: sanctions, appeals, frozen assets. Tehran doesn't blink.
Secretary of State Cyrus Vance warns against military action. He believes diplomacy can still work. He is overruled.
Vance will resign in protest, the first Secretary of State to quit over a military decision in over a century. 100 days, then 200. Every one of them, a countdown with no end in sight. This isn't a war fought with armies. It's a war fought in silence, in shadows, by men who don't exist.
And it begins in a room few people will ever know existed.
The Pentagon, Washington, D.C. 66 Americans remain held captive in Tehran. Diplomatic channels have failed. It's time for Operation Eagle Claw. Major General James Vaught takes command of the Joint Task Force. His orders come from the President himself. The plan is codenamed Rice Bowl. On the day of execution, it will have a new name: Eagle Claw. 3 years earlier, Colonel Charlie Beckwith built something America had never had: a full-time hostage rescue unit, Delta Force. Inspired by his time with Britain's SAS, Beckwith demanded the same brutal standard. Most men who try, fail. The selection course pushes candidates to their absolute limit. 40-mile marches, alone, against the clock, in silence. Inside the House of Horrors, operators train to shoot with instinct alone. Hostage takers down, hostages untouched. Out of hundreds who apply, only a handful ever earn the Delta tab. These are the men chosen for Tehran. Beckwith has spent 3 years building this force for exactly one mission. Now, that mission has arrived. Months of brutal, secret rehearsals bring us here, Wadi Kenna, an abandoned desert airstrip. A multi-service joint force preparing for the impossible. Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marines, all forced to work as one. April 24th, 1980. From the deck of the USS Nimitz in the Arabian Sea, 8 heavy helicopters, callsign Bluebeard, lift off into the pitch black, heading 600 miles inland. Inside the embassy, the hostages have lost track of the days. Blindfolds, isolation, whispers travel cell to cell, rumors of a rescue. No one knows if they're true. Hope is dangerous here. Unknown to the hostages, Tehran itself feels the tension rising. Something is coming, though no one can say what.
6 months in, the hostages have learned one thing: survival is its own act of defiance.
Above them, Tehran sleeps, unaware that 600 miles away, an American task force is already in the air. Tonight, 2 stories collide: the hostages who wait, and the men flying through the dark to reach them. While the helicopters fly low over the coastline, our C-130s cross into Iranian airspace, navigating the silent, hostile skies of the Dashtalut Desert. One wrong radar ping, and the mission is over. Then, the desert strikes back. A haboob, a fierce, blinding sandstorm no one had planned for. Visibility drops to 0. The Bluebeard helicopters are scattered, fighting the toxic dust. They call it Desert 1. A remote salt flat deep inside Iran, chosen from satellite photos alone.
No cover, no backup, just sand, darkness, and a ticking clock.
Then, headlights. A civilian bus, 44 passengers aboard, stumbles straight into the most secret operation in America.
The mission is already compromised. The passengers are detained, for now. The secret holds.
A special forces team fires on a fleeing fuel truck. A smuggler, not a spy, but the danger is real.
The explosion lights up the night sky for miles.
So much for staying hidden.
8 helicopters left the Nimitz. Only 6 are needed for the mission to proceed.
Now, commanders count the shadows in the sky and wait.
2 helicopters never make it. One turns back with a cracked rotor blade. Another, blinded by the haboob, aborts entirely. Only 6 remain, the bare minimum. Then comes the gut punch. Helicopter 6 limps in, its hydraulic system failing before their eyes.
Of the 8 that launched, only 5 are now flight-worthy.
6 choppers. That was the bare minimum to carry the assault force and hostages out alive.
5 isn't enough. Everything now hangs on one impossible call. In Washington, the president waits by a phone. In the desert, Colonel Beckwith stares at the sand.
Every second of silence feels like an hour.
Push forward with 5 helicopters and risk everything?
Or abort a mission months in the making and leave the hostages behind? Beckwith makes the call no commander wants to make. He recommends abort.
In the White House, it's 3 a.m. President Carter, alone with his advisors, approves the abort.
Then, the word no one wanted to hear crackles through the radio. Abort.
Operation Eagle Claw is over, before it truly began.
Now, the priority shifts from rescue to retreat.
In total darkness, exhausted crews scramble to refuel the helicopters for the long flight home.
But the desert isn't done with them yet. Rotor wash whips the sand into a blinding haze.
Pilots can barely see their own hands, let alone each other.
One helicopter is ordered to move aside, clearing the path for the departing aircraft.
But blind in the dust, it drifts off course.
Its rotor blades are seconds away from a C-130 packed with fuel and men. Then, impact. The helicopter's blades tear into the C-130's fuselage.
In an instant, the night sky turns to fire.
5 airmen and 3 Marines are killed in seconds. Ammunition explodes in the flame.
What was meant to be a rescue has become a tragedy. There's no time to grieve. Survivors scramble aboard the remaining aircraft, forced to abandon the dead, classified documents, and 5 intact helicopters in the sand. The last aircraft lifts off, leaving Desert One and 8 of America's bravest men behind.
By morning, Iranian state television broadcasts the wreckage to the world.
The remains of the fallen are displayed on camera, a final, brutal insult layered onto tragedy. The failed mission becomes a national humiliation and a global embarrassment.
President Carter takes full responsibility on national television.
The failure will haunt his presidency through a bitter re-election fight just months away.
Admiral James Holloway is ordered to lead an investigation into what went wrong and why.
The Commission's findings are damning. Poor inter-service coordination, no unified command, no dedicated rescue force.
Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, each trained separately, briefed separately, speaking almost different languages under pressure.
Even the weather forecast is scrutinized. The sandstorm was foreseeable. It was simply never briefed to the pilots.
8 caskets return home. A nation, already humbled, now grieves in silence. Families of the fallen demand one thing, that these deaths mean something, that change must follow.
Congress takes notice. The failure at Desert One becomes the case study for a decade of military reform.
Out of catastrophe comes reform. The disaster at Desert One leads directly to the creation of a unified command.
One built to make sure this never happens again.
In 1980, the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC, is formed, built specifically to prevent another Desert One. 6 years later, the Goldwater-Nichols Act forces every branch of the military to finally learn to fight as one. In 1987, U.S. Special Operations Command is born, a force built on the ashes of Desert One.
A second rescue attempt, Operation Honey Badger, is quietly prepared, larger, better equipped, ready to launch again. It will never be needed. Diplomacy, this time, finally moves faster than the military plan.
Delta Force gets its true baptism by fire 3 years later, in Grenada, in Operation Urgent Fury. Every lesson from Desert One is rebuilt into doctrine: joint training, unified command, dedicated aircraft, redundant systems.
Decades later, that same doctrine guides operations most of the world will never hear about.
In 2011, the very command born from this failure executes a raid the world will never forget. Every success that follows owes a debt to 8 men who never made it home from the sand. Desert One remains the darkest night in modern special operations history, and the night that changed everything after it. Failure, faced honestly, became discipline. Discipline became doctrine. Doctrine became a legacy that endures today.
Back in Tehran, the hostages have no idea that a rescue was even attempted. Their captivity simply continues.
After the failed raid, they're scattered across the country. Harder now for anyone to ever try again.
In Algiers, quiet negotiations finally succeed where the raid could not. An agreement is reached.
The hostages will remain captive for 444 days in total, the longest hostage crisis in American history. On January 20th, 1981, a plane sits ready on a Tehran runway, waiting for one final signal. At the exact moment Ronald Reagan is sworn in as president, the order is finally given. 52 Americans lift off into freedom, the very instant a new administration takes power. They come home to a nation that never stopped watching, never stopped waiting, never stopped hoping. 8 men never came home. Their sacrifice at Desert One is often forgotten beside the joy of that final release. But their failure taught America how to succeed. Every elite raid since carries a piece of that desert night.
Command is a weight passed from one generation to the next, heavier now for what came before.
Charlie Beckwith would spend the rest of his life defending the men who tried and mourning the ones who didn't return. Operation Eagle Claw failed in the desert sand, but it forged the doctrine that special operations forces still follow today. 8 names, 52 survivors, one night that changed everything that came after.
This is that story, in memory of the 8 who never made it home.